Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Onside Kick Show. I'm your host, Zach Stein. Today, we are joined by a new special guest who has not been on the show before, but he has submitted some questions. Mr. Billy Nayman, one and only. How are you doing
Hello,
today,
hello.
Bill?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to get going.
Yes, sir. Avid Vikings supporter, so we'll definitely
Yeah,
be talking about the Vikings a little bit today.
and they're
Um, yeah. So if you guys do like these visual episodes that we've been putting out, last week with Gavin and today, make sure to leave a comment on the Instagram at Onside Kick Show, or a comment here on the YouTube channel. Appreciate your feedback. Appreciate your questions as well. I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have. So, Billy, as you may know, because I told you 5 minutes before, we start our episodes with trivia. So we have this website, fantasyindex.com. Their slogan is "Where cheaters always prosper." Always love to point that out. And today is December 29th, 2023, almost 2024. Let's go ahead and get the ball rolling with this question. So, as we know, Amari Cooper's been going off with the Browns and Joe Flacco, who we'll talk about later. But the question for today is, Amari Cooper went 265 yards last week at Houston. Previously, he had three other 200-yard games when he played for Oakland and Dallas. So who is the only player who is now retired who finished his career with even more 200-yard games in a regular season action? So once again,
um
just for
so
the
retired.
yeah, retired player has to have above four 200-yard games in regular season action.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is a lot.
Yes.
That's like a lot of because 200 yards is that's 20% of 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
That's literally it's a lot in one game.
Yes, it is. And Amari Cooper has done it
Julio's
four
not
times.
retired because he is still on the Eagles, but I know he's got at least three or
Hmm.
probably three. Um, then you got, of course, Megatron. You have to imagine he had at least two, three, maybe four. I'm hoping it's four.
Because he had
Uh,
he had that game where he almost had 300. It was like 294 or something like that.
has anyone had 300
Nope.
in receiving yards? No,
That is the closest that we've gotten was the 294.
294.
I,
That's
I
wild.
believe. I'm pretty sure. Let me look that up.
And then when it came to other 200-yard guys, well, you got to throw Jerry Rice out there because he's the GOAT. There's a good shot, there's a good chance he had it.
Oh, you know what? I think I'm thinking of rushing yards because actually the record is 336 by Flipper Anderson
336,
in 1989. But Calvin Johnson has the number two with 329.
329. Oh, so he even went over 300. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
Julio had exactly 300, so he did that one
Okay,
time
see, I
too.
knew that. All right, well, let's not cheat though. Let's not cheat.
Right, right,
Uh,
right. That's true. That was just 300-yard games. The question is number of
yeah,
200-yard games.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Of course, we could Randy Moss
yeah, Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Megatron. Those were like the top three.
for
Another
sure.
name that I will throw out there is Terrell Owens because I remember when they were showing these graphics about Amari Cooper. Terrell Owens was the only player who had gotten multiple 200-yard games with uh, different teams. So like Amari Cooper has done
Okay.
it for three teams, and I think Terrell Owens also had for three teams. So I'd say that's a pretty safe
Well,
bet.
that's at least three
Yeah,
right there.
right,
There's a chance he did it at least twice with San Fran. I mean, you got to assume.
right,
I
right.
mean, yeah, San Fran,
Hmm.
Golden Gate right here.
There you go. Yep. But it's not Go Niners, right?
No, it's never go Niners. Let's go Vikes, baby.
Go Vikes. I got to stop bringing
And
all these NFC North like fans on the show. I have Gavin who's a Lions fan. He's here all the time. We got Vikings fan. Never gonna have a Packers fan on here. I can tell you that much.
yeah, that's good. That's good. Um, oh man, I'm trying to think. Could Torrey Holt be on that list
Yeah,
with the greatest show on turf? I feel like
yeah.
he just had a bunch of wild games.
Or Isaac Bruce for that matter. Could be
True,
either of
either
them.
one.
I mean, yeah, having four 200-yard games for one franchise also is just insane.
Wild, first
Yeah.
of all.
I mean, if I had to guess, I mean, you can't go wrong with Jerry Rice or anything. I mean, it could be Julio, but he's not. He's not retired.
He's not
It's actually,
retired, so it's not Julio.
I would probably say either Terrell Owens or Megatron. I don't know if you feel similarly.
Knowing the stat about Terrell Owens, I feel more comfortable with Terrell Owens, but also Megatron is Megatron, so I'm fine just going with Megatron, trusting my gut there.
Sending Megatron. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the more we think about it, the more names are going to come up, and I'm going to get more confused. So I'm going to say Terrell Owens. If you're going to say Megatron.
All right. I'm going to say Megatron.
All right, we're locking it in. Book it. So
Book it.
the player who is retired who has had more 200-yard games than Amari Cooper is... you're right. It's Megatron.
It is Megatron?
It is Megatron.
All
He had
right.
5 games with 200 plus.
200-yard game. That's 1,000 yards in 5 games. That's wild. That's
Wow.
crazy. Well, one of
Wow.
them was 300. We know that.
Right.
So it's 1,100 yards in 5 games at least.
Yeah.
That's
Oh my
wild.
gosh. And just for the Lions, too. That's amazing. I mean, him and Matt Stafford just making
Matt
magic.
Stafford, unsung hero.
He
Like,
is.
legitimately.
He's got...
unsung because of that ring, but he was unsung before and still after.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the man's only made a Pro Bowl, I think, once or twice. Like, didn't make it when he had
Well,
40 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. That's criminal.
that is criminal. That is criminal. But that was also a good year, 2011.
Mm-hmm. We talked about Matthew Stafford a lot on the show last week about how the Rams look pretty good. He's playing the best he's ever played, really, or in one of those moments where he's playing
Yes.
at his peak.
One of those hot streaks.
Yeah, a lot of Matthew Stafford love recently, so that's good. This trivia is also saying 4 players have had 4 games, including or 4 other players besides Amari Cooper, which would be Charlie Hennigan, Lance Allworth, Don Hudson, and of course Jerry Rice. I think the
Jerry Rice.
thing that sets Jerry Rice apart is he had 214 in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
Which is just insane. Like game
That guy
plan
should've won
all
MVP.
year.
Oh, man.
Yep. He should be the only receiver who won MVP, but he was one of the few guys who won Offensive Player. So I think at the time that'll serve some justice.
I think he was the only one before Michael Thomas.
That sounds right to me. Yeah.
And then it was just we've gone on a run because a workhorse receiver is how it works now.
Yep. Cooper Kupp, and then which again Matt Stafford responsible for that.
Yes.
And then we might see Tyreek Hill. We'll see. There's a lot of players who probably deserve an offensive award this year, so we'll
Jets
see how that
last
pans
season,
out.
of course.
So Billy 1, trivia 0. Meanwhile, I think I've gotten maybe one of these right. So you've got a better record than I do.
Well, there we go.
Megatron's pretty safe bet.
It's a safe bet. It
yeah.
really is.
But okay, so let's go ahead and move on here. We got our trivia out of the way. Going into this week in the NFL, well, obviously we had our Thursday night game last night, but this is currently week 17. We are right at the end here, second to last. We saw the Browns absolutely demolish the Jets yesterday. We do have a couple good matchups coming up here. But before we delve into that, let's talk about some of the big news for this week. So right off the bat, we got to talk about Niners Ravens because that was very telling for both teams, I would say.
And I've been on the Ravens train for like 5 seasons now, but like pretty much anytime Lamar's healthy, I'm pretty sure they're the best team in the league. This year, they could have easily been undefeated at this point. They've blown a couple of games because of Lamar turnovers at the end of games and just elite defense that they're going up against. Like 2 of the losses are in their own division, which is the best division in football. And it's the Steelers and Browns. And that Browns game was a phenomenal comeback. But either way, it feels like they're a team where if they don't make mistakes, they win. And there are a lot of teams that can just get beat, even playing their best, because mistakes happen with those teams.
Yeah, I think that's very well said because, I totally agree with the Ravens. I mean, Lamar has been great. You can argue that he's the MVP. We'll get into the MVP talk in a little bit. But, he has had a few turnovers that have cost them. But overall, when you need him to keep you in the game, he's not really going to mess up. They had that loss to the Colts, which is a really close game. But the Colts they're 8-7. They're not a bad team.
You're right. The Colts they wound up playing well. That was to Gardner Minshew, but then again, Gardner Minshew started most of the season. So
Uh-huh. Yep. And that was his first start, I believe, or his first or second
yeah,
start.
it was
Or
in
maybe not start, but
between.
he came in during that game, I think. It was the first
It,
time.
it was in between a couple of games where Anthony Richardson was in and out.
Yep. But yeah, I would say for this 49ers Ravens game, Brock Purdy, expecting a little bit more out of him. I will say he threw 4 picks. I would say the first one, definitely his fault. Second one, kind of threw it into traffic. Like, it wasn't as inherently a bad throw, but it was a bad decision.
Yeah,
Very risky. Then he had one that was kind of tipped up in the air. There's only so much you can do about that. And I don't even
it
remember
happens
what
to
the fourth one
everyone.
was. But overall, I would say, yeah, he kind of pissed away his MVP during that game. I don't know if you feel differently.
Well, I mean, to be fair, he was never really my MVP favorite. Like when people were talking about different quarterbacks having a shot at MVP, it was always Dak for me between the two like top guys. Um, but Brock Purdy, he's had an incredible year. In my mind, after last season, I was like, yeah, I could see that guy making a few Pro Bowls. He's clearly better than that. He's clearly more than a few Pro Bowls guy. He's going to be, maybe a second team all pro this year even, but probably not, after that last game. He'd have to have some really incredible showings, which he's had, like he can prove it. But I don't know. He just doesn't have that MVP it factor that I feel like most guys that have won it recently have had. I mean, it's been Mahomes, Rodgers, Lamar over the past 5 years. So I feel like if it's not groundbreaking stats, you could even give it to someone who isn't a quarterback.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. I agree with all of that. I think the thing that Brock Purdy does really well is the layered throws when there's a lot of receivers in the area and getting into like tight windows. But he does. There are a lot of open receivers in that offense, and when people aren't open, and the line starts to take some hits. I mean, Trent Williams went down that game at one point. McCaffrey had a pretty good game, but there were times where, like towards the end of the game, where he was just getting stuffed and they couldn't really get anything going. And they got into that funk and they couldn't really get out of it. So that is certainly concerning. But yeah, I think what you're saying about the it factor, that's
Yeah.
really the reason why Lamar has a shot at MVP, because he's not putting up the best numbers, but he does have the best record of any team in football right now.
True.
And he's looking like the number one seed in the AFC, and he
Yeah.
has won MVP before. He has the it factor. He played like an MVP at San Fran. So I think that also brings up the conversation of, is the MVP really, one, a quarterback award, and two, is it really just about numbers, or is it like how valuable are you to your actual team? Because you could argue that Joe Flacco might be the MVP right now.
You're right. I mean, your argument would be right. Joe Flacco has been nuts. Like he's honestly been better than Deshaun Watson at quarterback for the Browns.
Oh yeah.
And when you have an offense that's clicking with the defense that is the best in the league, if not the Ravens, it's definitely the Browns. And I personally think it's still the Browns. So, like, Joe Flacco definitely has been doing the job the way an MVP has to do the job to win the games. But I have always hated that wins are a quarterback stat when it comes to the whole Lamar thing, because I feel like, yes, he's played incredibly well. And in my opinion, he's been the most valuable quarterback this season. But when it comes to MVP, I feel like you have to have gaudy stats. You have to have the big numbers. And I'm not sure if any quarterback has done that without also, having the big mistakes, like Josh Allen, even great season touchdowns wise, another great season turnovers wise, great as in the magnitude of or I guess the multitude of turnovers. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not winning as many games because of it. Like week one, he lost to the Jets, 3 picks to the same guy, That's not how you win football games. And Lamar definitely knows how to win football games, but it's not just on him. So that's why I feel like if we're going off the best player on the best team, maybe McCaffrey has a shot, Like that's who I'd vote for right now if the season ended 2 weeks
Yeah,
before it actually ends.
I was going to ask you who your MVP was. So you'd say McCaffrey?
Right now, I'd say McCaffrey just barely ahead of Lamar, I guess, because of the whole
Hmm.
He wins the games thing, even though I don't
Hmm.
love that stat. But he also just hasn't made enough mistakes like the other elite quarterbacks. Potentially Dak at my three, and then Tyreek Hill, I also have up there. It's just hard because you have to do something insane to win MVP as a wide receiver because
Yeah.
it's never happened.
Yep. Yep. And it's never happened. And then also, obviously it's like who's throwing you the ball, right? So
Mhm.
if you have like a like if DeAndre Hopkins that year where he was cycling quarterbacks all the time and he put up 2,000 yards, yeah, you could say he's the MVP. But
For
with Tyreek
sure.
Hill, I mean, you got to give some credit to Tua. I think you can give credit to both of those, put to Tyreek and Tua, without being like, oh well, Tyreek is putting up numbers because Tua is spamming the ball to him, or Tua is only good because of Tyreek. Like their offense has worked with Waddle, and I think it's give or take, right? There's a middle ground there. But I totally agree with you. I think if the only shot of him actually winning MVP would he'd have to break 2,000, and he
I
needs
think that's
400
kind of
yards in the next two games. So
well, yeah. I'm pretty sure he's not going to get that. He's got to go against the Ravens this week. Like
yeah,
it's a
right,
tough defense for
yeah,
even Tyreek Hill to go against. Um, and I mean the O line has been great, but now they got to deal with Metabuike up the center. Like that's going to be brutal. I mean Connor Williams has been good. He really has. Over from Dallas, but like it's just been serviceable up the middle. It's been great on the edges. Austin Jackson actually looks good. Fight on.
yeah,
Um,
oh
and
yeah.
then it's just as long as you can run the ball and pass the ball effectively enough, like Tyreek Hill will get the stats because they
Mm-hmm.
have to worry about everything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll talk about that matchup, Baltimore and Miami, in a little bit here because I think that's probably the biggest matchup of the week. If not, then top two or three. But I'm glad you
For
shouted
sure.
out the Ravens defense because I was going to bring it up. Yeah, Justin Madubuike is having a Pro Bowl season. He's got 10 sacks from the D tackle spot, 10 and a half maybe. Absolute
I think he
monster.
might even be up to 11 now.
Yeah, it would not surprise me. He's had a sack in I think every game this year, at least a half a sack in every game this year except for one.
Wow.
And
Well
he
then,
did
yeah,
miss
that's
one
wild.
game, but there was one
I
where he
mean,
had zero. But
Tyreek missed one game. If Tyreek didn't miss that game against the Jets,
yeah,
they actually floored him, and the Jets have a decent defense. Like he would have a shot at the MVP.
hmm
It's tough that one game kind of takes it away because you never know if you're gonna have this good of a season again in Tyreek's case. But I think he will. He's that fast.
and that we've seen that in the past with Carson Wentz. He was like the lock for the MVP. He missed the last three games, and it went to Tom
True.
Brady. I mean,
Yeah. Gosh.
part of it is just being healthy for the whole year with Jalen Hurts and Mahomes. Jalen
Yeah.
Hurts
Last
missed those
season.
two, or he got banged up in the shoulder and wasn't the same. And it was, it's tough, but durability is part of what makes you a good NFL player. Like Joe Burrow is a fantastic quarterback, but if you're taking three guys to start your franchise, you can argue that you may take somebody like I would say if I had to rank, I would probably put Burrow ahead of somebody like Lamar. But I'm sure you would argue maybe take Lamar
Me
because
personally.
Burrow's got some injury concerns. I
Well,
mean, injury is
so
very
so
important.
does Lamar. Lamar's, I just feel like are more just athletic physical injuries, like a sprained calf or it's nothing that's like intensely like a torn anything. He hasn't
Yeah,
absolutely teared anything, which Burrow has twice. Like
yep,
that's tough.
yep. And as a kid who had strep throat on my birthday every year from like age 6 to 12, I can tell you, I think the person that I think has a worse immune system would be Lamar Jackson. That man has
Mhm.
an illness like every other week.
That's true.
So I don't really know what's going on with that. But that means he kind of, I guess he has a flu game every other week, which just makes him that much cooler. So
Yeah, honestly, it makes the fantasy duds not as bad, although
yeah,
they
that's
are
also
tough.
true. But yeah, I think that we have talked about this game plenty. These are two teams to still look out for to have a rematch. I would say Niners and Ravens. We could see them even in the Super Bowl. Who knows? I don't think the Niners
Rematch
are
of the whole
total
brother bowl
frauds. Yeah, the
between
Harbaugh Bowl.
Harbaugh.
Hmm.
Yeah, that'd be
Yeah.
fun.
Another reason why the Ravens are always winning, always competitive. John Harbaugh,
I
super
love John
underrated
Harbaugh.
coach. Yeah,
So good.
gave him some love on the show last week as well. Um,
Good call.
well, let's mix in a little Vikings action here, right? Because you guys are
Yeah.
sitting at 7-8 right now.
I knew we
have
would be
been
too.
right. It's yeah. I mean, in and out of playoff contention all year, but you're still technically in it, right? You got to put together two more wins,
It's
and
crazy that we're technically in it.
yeah, and you have a path. I mean, you got to beat the Packers and you got to beat the Lions, which when you're playing a division rival, you never know. Even though Nick Mullins threw 4 interceptions and 400 yards last week, you guys only lost to the Lions by one score.
We had a
So
shot too. It was the final drive. Gosh.
yes. Oh, and I'm sorry, Nick Mullins 400 yards. That was no, yeah, that was against the Lions, right?
That was against the Lions.
Yeah.
He had
Uh-huh.
320 against the Bengals. And it's like, I don't care if you're not winning the games, Nick.
Right, exactly. People get on Fields about that. Oh, well, he doesn't have 300 passing yards every game. Well, you can have 400 passing yards in a game and still be a bad quarterback. So, before I
Yeah.
get on my rant there, Vikings starting Jaron Hall this week against the Packers, who
Yeah.
their defense has made young quarterbacks look like Dan Marino. I don't know why I picked Dan Marino as an example there, but yeah,
No,
Bryce
it's a
Young
great example.
had a
Yeah.
great game. Almost won that one. Panthers put up 30 points. Right, Baker Mayfield put up 34 points. Tommy DeVito put up 24. Like,
I mean, yeah, geez, that Packer Giants game. That was crazy. I thought the Packers were going to smoke them, and then I realized they're pretenders.
yep,
Cool.
yep. Which can't complain with that. But what do you think
Yeah, I
about them
root for it.
starting Jaron Hall now? And do you think that is the right quarterback who should be playing, or what are your thoughts on that?
I definitely am pro the Jaron Hall move. Honestly, at halftime last week, I was disappointed that Nick had such a good drive going into the locker room because I knew we weren't going to bench him at halftime. I was like, oh man, I think even Howie Long or someone on the halftime show was like, yeah, I think that last drive bought him the rest of the game. And sadly, yeah, it did buy him the rest of the game. I just want to see the rookie play. We saw him for one drive against the Falcons, and he was like, okay. I mean, he got concussed at the 4 yard line, but that's not on, well, it is on him. Like, go down, I guess. Like,
How
don't
dare
get
you get
concussed.
concussed, you idiot?
Yeah, like, I mean, I can't, it's on the sport of football at the end of the day. But, he looked good on that one drive. And to be fair, what the Packers have done on the other side of this game, they just shove Jordan Love out there, obviously 3 years after taking him, but finally like shoved him out there. It's like play and win or play and suck. We don't care. They did the 2 year deal thing where it's like, hey, if you work out this year, we'll pick you up for next year. And then we'll probably sign you to an extension. And honestly, I think he's working out because that's how progression works. You play, you get better, I mean, unless you're truly awful and you actually do get worse, but not a lot of people are Zach Wilson. And even fair to Zach, he's gotten better.
Yeah.
Like it's taken time, but just give them the reps and they will improve slightly. Um, Man, what disappoints me about this Viking season most is that when Justin Jefferson got hurt, we were 1-4. 1-4. I was like, okay, Caleb Williams time. Let's bench the rest of the team. I don't care. Justin's out. With him out, we went 5-0. Halfway through that streak, our quarterback Kirk tears his Achilles, and the Pastronaut leads us to 2 wins. It's like, oh man, it looks like we're just pushing for mediocrity. And so, the loss to Denver, the loss to the Bears, and now these back-to-back losses to the Lions and Bengals. It's just like I knew we were destined for this very disappointing fate. And wait, give me one sec. Sorry about. And so he was just. It just felt like I don't know. I didn't have a direction as a fan rooting for this team all year. Like I wanted to lose. And then we started winning, and I was like, well, mate. And then our quarterback gets hurt. I'm like, no, what are you talking about? Lose. And then we keep winning. And it's like, oh, maybe we make the playoffs in this diluted NFC. And I don't think we will. But I don't know. Maybe Jaron turns it on this week. It'd be cool to see.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know much about Jaron Hall. I know he's a 6th-rounder rookie. Where did he play at school?
BYU. He's the
BYU.
missile.
Ah,
Yeah.
more missile. Move over, Zach Wilson. There's a new BYU
Yeah.
QB in town.
Exactly.
Yeah, you might as well throw him out there and see. I mean, at first I was like, well, you got to let your quarterback get in a rhythm. Like, Nick Mullins, as bad as he was, is somehow they ended up being within one score. And if he just didn't mess up on that last drive, maybe they could have won. So part of me is like, all right, let your quarterback get in rhythm. Part of me was like, well, you probably maybe should let Dobbs play still, but I don't know. Had a rough
Well,
game
Dobbs
against the
fell out of
Bears and
rhythm.
with the yeah, he did. And so yeah, I don't even hate this move. I will say big reason why you went 5-0. Kevin O'Connell, just phenomenal
He's a
coach.
genius.
Yeah, I mean
So is
especially
Brian Flores. It's brutal. We're winning because of our coaching,
yes.
which is kind of how we lost games. Well, we barely lost last year, but Ed Donatel is the reason we lost games at all last year.
Hmm.
It's just disappointing that I don't know, Brian Flores wasn't here a year earlier, or all the health wasn't here a year later.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like we
weird,
could have been solid.
I feel that a lot. Bears fan, you get the talent there, and you're still missing some talent, but it's just the coaching is holding people back, right? Holding the
Oh
whole team
yeah.
back, and it's frustrating to see. And the same thing, it's like, oh, okay, we should just like great at the beginning of the season, we're gonna be so good. Packers destroy us. I'm like, I'm ready to get hurt again. Then it's like, okay, there's something there, maybe, and then it's like, all right, at some point we just got to tank or just whatever. But now we're competitive again. It's like this roller coaster because
Yeah.
it's all long term. If the Vikings were to tank and get more draft picks, I'm sure that would be a great move. I mean, look at the Jets. Like the
Just
Jets
one
are going to have a
season of
bad pick and they're getting Aaron Rodgers back. So when you have a really good quarterback and all these other players and they get hurt and you can reload with draft picks, it's only going to make your team better. But at the end of the day, as Brian Flores made clear with his time at the Dolphins, players don't want to tank. Fan bases may want to tank. Even organizations may want to tank. But coaches, players, they don't want to tank because that's their job. They're fighting for a spot on another team next year or a new contract extension. And so that's always the dilemma. And that's why we don't see players just roll over and die whenever the quarterback gets hurt.
It's just
But
when the quarterback and wide receiver one go down, you'd expect the offense to take a step back, and they still won three more games.
hey, man, at least you got some stability going into next year because I don't
True.
even know who's going to be our quarterback next year. I hope
Yeah,
it's
but
Justin, but I really don't know.
if it's Caleb, you'll still, well, I'm sorry for Caleb if it's Caleb, no offense, but your owners don't know how to hire front office people. So that's just a hole that they've had for like 8 or 9 seasons. So, yeah, it's tough. Quarterback's a tough position to fill, but it's way tougher if your coach isn't good at calling plays.
Yep, very,
So
very true. Um, well, with that being said, who are you taking this week? Realistically, you got Vikings, you got Packers. Who are you taking?
I got Vikings and Packers. The thing is, I do a picking trophy every year with my family, and I suck this year. I'm not good. I can't figure out half the teams in the league. I can't figure out the Vikings. So I guarantee I'm going to be wrong. But I did pick the Vikings because of the Jaron Hall start. Only because if Nick Mullins was playing, I would have picked the Packers. Jaron Hall, I don't know. Like you said, those young quarterbacks, they put up points, and our defense is better than the Panthers, like so maybe we can hold them to less than what we score, and that's
I
a
will
win.
say
So,
Byron Murphy being declared out this week, and you just lost DJ Wanham, really underrated guy on D line.
oh,
So
I love DJ Wanham.
I know I'd love him so much. Every Madden franchise I've made, I've always picking up DJ Wanham, getting him sacks.
Good
He's a
call.
monster. But yeah, so the defense is a little banged up, but home game Sunday night somehow. That's a Sunday night game.
Oh,
Um,
because it was supposed to be a good game at this point in the season.
right. That's yeah. I'm amazed they didn't flex that, but then again, it's a division rivalry game. I'd rather
And
have
it's
that
it's
than
a
some
big
random matchup.
rivalry. Like Packer
Yeah.
Viking, it's not, Packer Bears, but that's just because it's old. This is
Yeah.
one of those rivalries that's like back and forth,
Yes, exactly. So I expect the players to play like they want. Both teams play like they mean it.
Mhm.
I could see this one going either way, but yeah, I wouldn't. I'm not. I don't think it's ridiculous to say a Vikings win, even with the Jaron Hall thing, because Packers defense not look very good. I think Pat McAfee show, one of the guys, I think it was Ty, he was saying if Joe Barry, the Packers D coordinator, lets Panthers put up like 30 points on him, I mean, he needs to go. And well,
Put up 30
almost
exactly.
lost. Put up 30 and almost lost. So, I do want to talk about the Panthers for a second here because, there is a graphic that was released a couple days ago, and it was saying if one-score games had the opposite result for every team in the league, then there would be a lot of shocking changes. So for one, Philadelphia would be, well, this was, let's see, what week was this? I think this was week 16 or 15, but Philadelphia would have been 5-9, which is crazy. Carolina would also be 5-9. And for the team that this Packers win,
Carolina's
they would be then
had that
6-9.
many one-score losses?
Yeah.
Wow.
For as bad as they have a team, like a roster and the coaches, I mean, week 1, destroyed by the Falcons 24-10. Week 2, lost by 3 to the Saints. Week 3, lost by 10 to the Seahawks. That doesn't really count. Vikings game was technically a one-score game. It was 21-13.
8. Yeah. No, that definitely counts.
Got 42 bombed twice in a row versus Lions and Dolphins. They beat the
Honestly,
Texans.
the Vikings should have lost to the Panthers, too. Just touching back on that. Holy crap. I
Yeah.
mean, it should have been 0-5.
Yeah.
We had a heroic defensive touchdown to win that game by 8. Jeez. Anyway, keep going.
Bears with Tyson Bagent squeaked out a win there by 3. Titans, Cowboys destroyed them. That was painful to watch. That was painful. That game, I think, maybe not that game, but I was watching that and I know we won, but Tyson Bagent did not look great. Like his first throw should have been picked. Yeah. And even though they won, I was like, man, this really makes anybody that didn't like Fields kind of regret that decision a little bit. But next week, Cowboys blew them out. Then Titans lost by 1. Buccaneers lost by 3. Had that atrocious 9-7 win against the Falcons. And then the Packers, they lost by 3. So inconsistency is a problem. They don't play well against good defenses, obviously, but they have no talent. However, you flip around the one-score games, and they end up being 6-9, which is crazy to me. So I do just want to say, shout out to Bryce Young. I don't think it's over for him. It's always way too early to call it after a rookie's first year, especially at the quarterback. They're 2-13 right now. I think that they have a very good chance to beat the Jaguars on the road this week without Trevor Lawrence.
Wow, I disagree. I think the biggest deficiency for the Panthers outside of the receiving core, they at least have Adam Thielen. They got no one on the O-line. I mean, I like it here. I do. Taylor Moton, I think, is still around. He's not bad, but geez, their O-line is going to get destroyed by that Jags D-line. I'm not sure. Bryce will have the time.
I totally agree with that, but then I also think about, well, the Falcons have had a pretty good defense. The Packers have some guys in there, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, able to hold up pretty well. I won't be surprised if the Jaguars destroy the Panthers, but, they have been pretty good in the last week or two. Well, I don't know. True. Falcons game, I'll only say they're good because they won. I don't say they play well. And the Jaguars have been pretty inconsistent as of late. And so C.J. Beathard, Iowa legend, I don't know if he's going to get it done. So I will say this. Back before the show, and really no way to prove that I said this, but I was saying Texans versus Panthers, pick 1 versus 2. Watch out for this to be an upset game. This was before C.J. Stroud got hot. And they won that game. So I'm going to go with my gut here and say that the Panthers have a decent chance to beat the Jaguars. If they lose, it's going to be a close game.
Okay. You know what? I like the take. I'm still going to go with the Jags. Now that I know all the one-scoreness, maybe it'll be a one-score game. I'll give you that, but I'm still going to go with the Jags. I just think their defense is better. Even when they played the Ravens, it was, I think, actually the Ravens may have had a late touchdown, but for a while they were doing really well. And I think they're good enough to pull one out with C.J. Beathard manning the reins.
Yeah, it depends on if they can get ETN going, because ETN's also had a rough couple weeks, so he's the key. Yeah. If they can activate him, get him to early season form, then they should be all right.
Yeah, no, it's been a while since ETN's gone over 100 or even scored a touchdown.
Mm-hmm. Well, instead of continuing to talk about Panthers Jaguars, let's talk about some actual exciting matchups this week. We have a couple really good ones. I will say I think Chiefs Bengals would have been game of the year had Burrow been playing and the Chiefs not been run by Matt Nagy. But
Yeah.
we've got a couple good matchups still. We talked a little bit about the Ravens. Let's go ahead and return to them here. And Ravens at home versus the Dolphins Sunday at 12. What's your pick here?
This is a biased pick, but I'm going with the Ravens because I A, love Lamar, and B, I think now that the Ravens are pretty much fully healthy on defense, like Marlon's back and he's looking good. And they got Geno Stone, Marcus Williams, Kyle Hamilton. Like they got a nice secondary. The four eyes that are going to be on, or four guys that are going to have their eyes on Tyreek Hill are going to be four good defensive backs.
Geno Stone, Iowa legend, also.
Okay, go Hawks or
Yep.
Hawkeyes.
Yep. Yep.
There we go. But yeah, I just think the Ravens defense, again, for me at this point in the season, it feels like defense does win more games. In the playoffs, if you explode offensively, I can see an upset. I can even see a run. Like we saw Derrick Henry just dominate one playoff run. But I'm not sure if Tyreek Hill's at his best right now. I'm not sure if that Dolphins offense is at their best right now. They looked a little gelatinous against the Cowboys, who are good, but not fantastic. I think the Ravens are fantastic. So I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the Ravens.
I know it's tough to pick an opposing team after a big win like that against the Niners. Like they just beat one of the best team in the NFC, arguably.
Yeah.
But I would say this also could go either way for me. I think the Dolphins do have a chance to win. However, if this was a home game in Miami, I would say maybe they take it since it's in Baltimore.
I think they do take it if they're at home, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can agree on that. I do agree with you. I think the Ravens will win here. Waddle is out. Tyreek Hill is really banged up. So I don't know if we're going to be seeing those 300-yard game type of plays, But also, even if he was fully healthy, it's a Ravens defense. It's really tough. There's going to be pressure on Tua. I'm worried about the run game, though, because, Raheem Mostert, super touchdown reliant, but also big play reliant. Cowboys were able to minimize that last week, and they almost won. They had a shot.
It was
close. Yeah, I think that if Tua continues to make good reads, and the deep ball is not going to be really a factor in this game, I don't think. If he makes good, quick reads and they get the running game going, I think they could totally win. But personally, I think Baltimore is going to be able to snuff out Mostert. Achane has been great, but they haven't used him much as of late. So maybe they try to get him going against the Ravens. But yeah, this D-line, the linebackers, Kyle Van Noy's had a really underrated season. He's got, I think, 7 sacks on the year. You got guys that are flying all over the place. Odafe Owe, like a lot of fast guys. I think they can shut down the run.
Really well.
Yeah.
Ravens, they got a good front office.
Yes, they do.
Even after
makes other teams jealous.
Tired.
Yeah, absolutely. And his parting gift was trading up for Lamar Jackson. So
genius.
Ozzy. Yeah. Browns legend as player and Ravens legend as manager. So
yeah.
So we're in agreement on the Ravens there. Let's go to another really good matchup this week. This is the only game on Saturday. Saturday night, 7:15.
Yeah.
You got the Detroit Lions, favorite on one of the favorites on this show, versus the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. This could be really interesting, but what do you think?
I think I'm gonna go probably. I think I'm gonna go with Dallas. Again, it's the home thing. Actually, I'm switching it up. I'm gonna go with Detroit.
Okay.
Even though Dallas is at home, they have looked like just slow out the gate in every one of their games. I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like they don't have the right mindset to right the ship right now. And I'm not sure if they right the ship right now, if they ever will this season. So I could see the Cowboys definitely winning at home. But I feel like this is one of those last second field goal Lions walk off, just, 1 point, 2 point win on the road. And that's like, oh my gosh, Lions have a shot at the 1 seed type thing, and that'd be a great story for Detroit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it already has been exceeding expectations this year, winning the North getting back there and, well, really getting there for the first time in a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with your take on the Cowboys. I would say the same thing about the Lions though too. I think sometimes they really inconsistent. They'll put up 40 against Denver, but then lose to a team like the Bears. Vikings kept it close. I know that's like a division game, but even there's the Saints game where they didn't run away with that one. It was 33-28. So I think their defense
That game was a
definitely is
little
spotty.
bit more one-sided, I feel like, though. I feel like the Saints kind of caught up to them more than them going back and forth all game.
That is true. They were dominating in the first half, but still, I would
The
say
NFC South is awful. So,
yeah, right. Bucks could be maybe a team for to keep it competitive in the wild card, but I don't think they're winning anything.
no, they have to play the second best team in the NFC Beast, which is either the Cowboys or, God forbid, the Eagles. And if it's the Eagles, that's a tough upset in Tampa.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, for the Lions, I think these are two Lions and Cowboys. These are two teams that have so much potential. I think on paper the Cowboys are just so much a better team, but their
Yeah.
offense does not really compare to what the Lions have done this year in terms of just like the general overall functionality and like
Yeah.
I know Dak has had a great year, but the way the Lions offense operates, like quick, the play action is like precise. They have a really good balance of pass and run. Then
Yeah.
the running game is the key here. The
It really
Cowboys,
is.
Tony Pollard has really only, I think he's kind of showed that he's not really a franchise back because I love the guy. He's quick. He's a playmaker, but he worked way better as an RB2, whereas you get the full load there. And I think he's really only averaging above 4 yards a carry just because of that O-line.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Lions have a great O-line too, but you got Montgomery and Gibbs, who are both really talented guys.
Mhm.
You're picking the Lions, correct?
I'm picking the Lions, but like in a nail biter.
Nail
I think this
biter.
will be
Yeah.
like, I mean, outside of the Vikings game, which I know will go down to the wire, this will be a real good game.
Yeah. This is so tough here. I almost don't even want to make a pick because, like, I don't know. And whoever wins this game could very well be the number one seed in the NFC, especially
I
if
mean,
the Lions win.
because the whatchamacallit, Niners, I think they're still the de facto, but they've got a game at the end of the season, I believe against the Rams, if I'm not mistaken.
The
Yeah,
Niners do.
it's the Rams. And
Yeah,
if the Rams can win that game, then whoever wins this game is the one seed. You know what I mean? Because it's not like the Lions are going to lose to the Vikes. I mean, they could. They
they
almost
could.
did,
It's
but
possible. It's very possible.
I just don't see it.
Well, I think I'm gonna take just because it is at home. I might take Dallas, but I don't even want to do that. I'm gonna take the Lions
See,
too.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. It's such a weird. This is gonna be. I hope that this is a good matchup though. That's really all I care about. I just want to see good football. I hope this is a 36-33
Seen a lot
type
of
of thing.
bad football
Yes,
this year,
a
and
lot.
yeah, I think this is going to be one of those games that isn't. Thank God.
The question really will just be, can they get the run game going? And so I think that the Lions defense is going to be spotty. It's going to be a shootout, but Jared Goff is going to need to make really good reads, not turn the ball over. Because if he does, yeah, I mean that I don't see that they're going to have 200 yards rushing on the Cowboys. So maybe, who knows? If anyone's going to do it, it'll probably be Gibbs and Montgomery because that's two RB1 guys that you have to worry about.
I mean, I'm not sure Montgomery's RB1 level anymore, but that O-line certainly makes him look RB1 level.
That's true. Well, I mean, whether it's him or the O-line, he is having one of the best years of his career, if not the best. So,
For sure. I
um,
mean, a lot of touchdowns, and the efficiency's been solid for sure.
yes. Well, let's go ahead and talk about one more matchup this week. You got a couple ones that are pretty one-sided. San Fran versus Washington. I think that's going to be terrible. Eagles
Yep.
versus Cardinals. I think that's going to be pretty bad. Talked about the Vikings, Packers already. Let's see here, man. I mean, let's go with Seahawks Steelers. These are two 8-7 teams.
Mhm.
Seahawks at home. It's 3:05 p.m. Sunday game. Meanwhile, the Steelers sit in third in the division. They're 4-1 in the division, but they are 3 games back from the Browns right now.
The Steelers
And
being 4-1 in the division is a testament to Mike Tomlin, first of all.
yes,
The fact that they're still above 500, another testament to Mike Tomlin. But I think the Seahawks are just a better team at this point.
interesting.
I think their offense is just more talented. And I think they have a good enough secondary and decent enough linebackers where, yeah, the pass rush may not have anyone elite, but it has enough to make them play hard. And I mean, that's why they beat the Eagles 2 weeks ago. Like they can make it happen. That's the type of defense this is, and the offense just is good in my opinion. So, and
Yeah.
no offense to the Steelers, their offense is not good in my opinion. So that's
Well, Mason Rudolph sure made it look really good. Bengals defense isn't a joke either. Like, I mean, that's a tough defense. They had
Nick
played
Mullins
horrible in the
almost beat
division.
it.
But yeah, that's also true. I think I'm just worried about the Seahawks because all of their wins are like they're just scraping by, and that's when they do win because I don't believe they have had. I'm looking at all their wins right now. I mean, Lions won by 6 points. Carolina won by 10. Crushed the Giants, yeah. Cardinals won by 10. Browns won by 4. Washington, they won by 3. That's really alarming.
Washington has a couple of good games though. It just depends if Sam Howell's on.
Right. Or if he's not, because he's starting to look super
Or if it was
bipolar in that
first
aspect.
half of the season and they still had a defense,
That's true. That's also true. But yeah, they barely took care of the Titans last week, which I think is concerning. I totally agree. I think this offense is so talented. You have arguably 2 top 10 receivers in DK and Tyler Lockett. Lockett may be on his way out. You got one of the best receivers in the class, Jackson Smith and Jigba. O-line needs some work for sure, but 2 big tackles, Abe Lucas, Charles Cross, Geno Smith,
I like
one
Charles
of the more
Cross.
accurate
He's
guys.
a little young.
Yeah, Charles Cross is still pretty young. And Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, I mean, really talented, but they just have been so disappointing. I don't know why they cannot pull together a consistent run game is a huge problem for them.
That's true.
Kenneth Walker, great start to the season, has not really been able to get it going. Did a little bit against
He's hurt
Eagles.
for a few weeks in there too.
That's true. Yeah.
You got to give him the benefit of the doubt for like 3 weeks, but then I mean, at this point against the Eagles, he looked awesome. I mean, K9, I feel like has it. He just has to be, fully healthy and have decent blocking.
Yeah. Oh, of course, of course. I think he's a really underrated guy at this point because he's probably a superstar top 10 running back. I don't know if people recognize him as that. But let's assume for this game that Mason Rudolph plays how he did last week. With that being said, if Mason Rudolph plays to that level,
I mean, then there's a good chance they win. He put up like 35 points last week.
Yeah. So,
I mean, to be fair, George Pickens did a lot of that.
Yep.
But I've seen Mason Rudolph start at least 10 games in his career. I'm not impressed. I'm really impressed by the defense. And I think he can win this game. I would not pick them to win this game.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I think I am actually going to pick the Steelers, though.
All right. Okay.
Because
Tomlin fact.
Mike Tomlin is not going to go down with a losing season. And this defense, I think, will just devour Geno Smith because their offensive line has not been very good. It really hasn't. Again, consistency is a huge thing. And you got TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith coming at you like Cam Hayward. Like, I think this is like a 20-17 type of thing. But I could also see the Seahawks not being able to do anything on offense. So I think the defense is the key to this. But if you have Mason Rudolph playing like he did last week and they keep the offense on the field, they can totally win. If Mason Rudolph isn't playing well, got to be Seahawks. I mean, they should be, because Seahawks are 1-4 in their division. So they're not, if they would need to have a better record than the Rams to make the playoffs.
True. Well, no, I think they're in right now, just ahead of some of the NFC South and NFC North contenders.
That is true. If they lose this game, they would be out, though.
Yes.
Not eliminated, but they would be out. Funny enough, actually, if the Vikings win and the Steelers win, then Vikings are in the playoffs right now, and the Seahawks aren't.
But I'm
sure
not
you
sure
don't want to pick the Steelers?
I'm not sure I even want it. Like, it's fun to have a playoff team, but I've had a playoff team like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years in my life, and
Ah,
we do some stuff, but it's never good enough. And I just wanted a quarterback that could get us to good enough, man.
must be nice having playoff team for 8 years, man. Must be nice.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Let's go ahead and talk about some running backs. We were talking about this a
All
little bit
right.
earlier. Billy and I were talking about, is Raheem Mostert a top 10 running back? And I think that's an interesting question here. If we go through the top 10 running backs, starting at number one, there's one guy here.
It's C-Mac.
It's C-Mac. It's got to be. McCaffrey is the best running back in football, has been for a decent amount, even with Derrick Henry playing really well. C-Mac's the most versatile. Like,
That's
he's
just
got
how
to
it
be
works in
number one.
today's
Yeah,
NFL,
yeah,
Versatility wins games.
that's very true. Now, when you go to number two, though,
Going to number two, see, you got to factor in a lot of different stuff. You got to factor in the versatility. You got to factor in how well they can just run the ball, even with a crap O line, and just if they can be a three down, every down type of back. And although Saquon isn't nailing it this season, I still think he's the second most talented running back in the league. I mean, outside of Nick Chubb, who I'm not really thinking about right now because of the whole torn knee thing, evaporating knee. Like it's got to be Saquon for me based on just talent. But I mean, it's tough. He's on a bad team. If we're going off people producing this year, he's probably a little lower on the list.
right? I think we can factor in, give or take, the last couple of years, maybe even next year, just like, not off this year alone, but just in general, factoring in injuries as well, because Saquon has been pretty banged up this year too.
And he's been pretty banged up his whole career. That's the thing. It's hard to put a guy who's not healthy all the time at two. But to be fair, we did put Christian McCaffrey at one. So
Yeah, and he had some injury problems in Carolina. So, yeah, I agree with the Barkley thing. I think he might be the most talented, like not even two, maybe number one in the league. But it's just, yeah, injury, O-line. It's really sad to see him suffer
and
in the Giants right
when the
now.
team can't throw the ball, they're just going to stack the box every time.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of different factors that would affect that. I would say it's going to be hard for me to put him at two right now just because there are so many other guys that have been producing. But yeah, like Nick Chubb, that's the thing. Yeah, he got injured this year. Are we still going to include him on the list? Well, I will
Yeah.
say this. Where do you think, well, I will ask you this. Where do you think Derrick Henry fits in currently right now?
I still think Derrick Henry, like at lowest, like 6, maybe 7, because he's still an incredible running back. His O line is awful. That's
Yes,
not for
that's for
him.
sure.
It's a tough O line.
Uh-huh. I mean, Derrick Henry's not Derrick Henry because after averaging 200 yards a game whenever he plays the Texans, he had 9 yards on 16 carries last game.
No, I
Look
was
for him
really
to
just
bounce back this week, but yeah,
yeah.
that was terrible to see. Now he's probably going to hit 1,000 yards again this year, only
Mhm.
averaging 3.9 currently, but there's a good chance he does. Good average or not, I think 1,000 yards is still 1,000 yards. So I would say you could still argue he's 2 or 3.
For sure.
But if we look at some other guys around the league, I mean, some names that I want to float up there, but I'm not exactly sure if they'd be in that top 5. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been doing really well the last couple seasons. Efficiency
Yeah.
isn't great, but he's been really really solid.
Yeah.
I would say, man, DeAndre Swift is a guy who's been pretty good this year. I don't know if I'd put him in the top 5. Jonathan
It-
Taylor, when he's played
Jonathan
this year, has
Taylor,
been
I
great.
think I'd put number 3, maybe number 4, because Alvin Kamara. I still
Ah,
got to give Alvin Kamara the
yeah,
respect as that dual threat. When we're
yep.
talking about versatility, he's probably number 2.
That's a good point. That's a good point. You know what? Let's get like a list of like 15 guys and we'll arrange them.
What are the 15 names you got up there?
Well, I don't know if this is 15, but I've got a bunch of guys that probably deserve to be in consideration, but I'm curious as to what you think. So in no particular order at all, I was just going down team names. So you got Jonathan Taylor, you got Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert, Isaiah Pacheco, Brees Hall, Austin
Yeah.
Eckler, Nick Chubb.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's one of the rookie guys, either Bijan or Gibbs. You could maybe think about, and same with Montgomery maybe, but
Definitely
Saquon.
thinking about next year.
Yeah, exactly. Looking forward to next year as well. Saquon, Tony Pollard, maybe DeAndre Swift, maybe Kenneth Walker, maybe James Cook. I don't think
Yeah.
it's fair to put him in the top 10 this year, but I just want to say Kyron Williams has been amazing.
Eddie has been arguing with me that he absolutely is. And honestly, after watching like 3 Rams games recently, he looks like he could be a 9, 10 guy. Like,
He is a
and
stud.
next year, honestly, I could see him getting up into top 5. Like, he's
Yeah.
that good.
Yeah. Which is crazy. He kind of came out of nowhere. He was on the team last year. He barely got any carries. And this year it was like, oh, they're going to roll Cam Akers, blah, blah, blah. Just boom. Kyron Williams, like averaging 25 a game in fantasy.
Yeah.
Like, so
5 yards a carry.
yeah, I want
He's
to
got
give him
a
another
bunch of
year.
touchdowns.
I want to give him another year, but he's gonna be in the top 5 in touchdowns scored for all-purpose yards, and he's probably gonna be number 2 in rushing behind McCaffrey. And he missed 5 games.
Yeah, that's what's wild. Him
Yeah,
and James Cook, only 208 carries right now. That's
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So he's a stud. I don't know if I could put him in the top 10 currently, but another guy who's in there like James Conner has been pretty underrated. You got McCaffrey, Kamara, Derrick Henry, and then Travis Etienne. I thought we talked about as well.
Oh,
Um,
Travis for sure. He's got to be in there. He's that good.
7,
I
8,
think he's
10.
like well, like a slightly better runner than Alvin Kamara,
Hmm.
but like a slightly worse receiver. It's like if you tone down one percentage, but you tone up the other one, and it's kind of the exact percent that I want from my running back. I love Travis Etienne.
Yeah, and they actually do compare pretty nicely. I think Kamara's a little bit more physical, but they're both very elusive. The way they run is honestly kind of similar. Got the long
Hmm.
strides, pretty fast. ETN's definitely faster. Kamara might be a little bit more quick, depending on how you look
Yeah,
at it. But
Ittery. What
I
I
would
said.
say let's take off like the guys who have had 1 year. So Kyron Williams maybe won't make it this year. Bijan, he's really fought Arthur Smith, who's just terrible and not using him well. But I would say he's still got another year to go. Same with like Gibbs.
Mhm. These guys are so insanely efficient, though.
Yes,
Oh
they
man, their
are.
yards per carry look great.
James Cook, I was a big fan of in college, and then last year he showed some flashes, and I thought, okay, make him the starting running back. And this year at the beginning, I was like, okay, what are you doing? But now they're really unlocking him. He still has some drop and
Yeah.
fumble issues, but throw him the ball in the passing game too. It's great. But I might take him off too because just 1 year type of guy.
Yeah, I mean, 1 year wonders, it's kind of hard to say that they're a guy until they do it one more time, 2 more times even. Once you're like 3 years of legitimate top level running back play, it's like, okay, yeah, they are certainly one of the top 5 guys in the league.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for that reason, I do think it is fair to say that Raheem Mostert may have weaseled his way in there because he's having a big season this year. But last year still had 890 yards, and they threw it to him in the passing game a little bit more there. Didn't have nearly as many touchdowns. But, once this list shapes out, the more names I see on here, the less I'm thinking that. So these are the names we got right now. Jonathan Taylor, Joe Mixon, Raheem Mostert, Isaiah Pacheco, Brees Hall, Austin Eckler, Nick Chubb, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, McCaffrey, Kamara, ETN, Derrick Henry. Any of those jump out at you like they need to go right now?
I mean, I think I love K9, but I think K9 and maybe Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift, even. It feels like Tony Pollard and DeAndre Swift are going for like their O line's so good type reasons. And K9's going for like he's just not good enough yet. And like he's close. He's just not there yet.
That's fair. I think you factor in injury a little bit as well. Because he missed a couple games this year. Last year he played 15 games. He didn't start all of them, but he was pretty good. But he did average 4.6 last year. This year he's like 4.0. But he still has 7 touchdowns, 700 yards. So I agree. Maybe take him off for right now.
Hmm.
So how many names we got now? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So number 1, we have McCaffrey. That's a lock.
For sure.
Number 2, I think saying Saquon's the most talented makes sense.
But if we're going based on just like the running back,
Yeah.
it's got to be Chubb, even though he's been out all year.
Yeah, Nick Chubb, even though he's been hurt, he's arguably the best running back in the NFL when healthy as well. Probably put him up
And
there.
he's not that versatile. That's how good he is.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm sure he'd be good if they threw to him. They don't need to.
Yeah, that's fair.
And, okay, we got that. Do we want to put Henry at 3?
Yeah, I'd put Henry at 3 based on the respect and the fact that he can still tote the rock. I mean, he's got 249 carries, just under 4 yards per carry, and that's with a just dog water O-line.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely atrocious.
I mean, he can't catch the ball, but again, this is a running back list, but
Yeah.
versatility does matter.
And the few times he has caught the ball, he's taken it to the house, 70 yards. So, he's got a couple of those.
I mean, yeah,
screen
not
passes
this
for
season,
70.
but
Yeah,
I've seen it.
That's true. For that reason, I think let's put Saquon in there because he can catch the ball. So we'll put him at 5.
True.
So we've got 5. Jonathan Taylor has to be up there. You want to put him?
Put him at 6. I mean, he had 1,800 rushing yards. What, 2 years ago? 1,800. That's a lot of yards.
It is. You gotta give him respect because even he's been playing this year. He missed a couple
really
games, but he's been pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah, he has.
Let's see, Jonathan Taylor.
Did we already put Kamara in there?
We did not. So that's the guy that I think he would be fighting for a spot with. It's Jonathan Taylor. Yeah, 1,000 yards his rookie year, 800, and then he got hurt last year, but he's still at 800. He's averaging 4.5 this year. 3.9 on the ground. Kamara though,
and they do have a good line, but he's been in and out. He had the contract thing. It's just a weird year for Jonathan Taylor.
Maybe we'll keep him at. Well, yeah. All right. So who are you taking then? You taking Alvin Kamara right now? You're taking Jonathan Taylor?
I'd probably take Kamara, but just like a little bit ahead because I like the fact that Jonathan Taylor runs the ball.
Yeah.
But the versatility of Kamara and the consistencies out of this world.
Yep.
And with a bunch of weird quarterbacks that aren't Drew Brees now, he's still been great. So
Yep.
Yeah.
How do we feel about Austin Eckler? Because I think this year
Austin
is
Eckler
like the I'm out of the league type of year.
He's low on my list.
Yes.
He's fallen out. Maybe even of the top 10. I mean, because I don't think I would rather have him over Travis Etienne right now. Travis Etienne's been awesome. And I don't know, Austin Eckler I mean, hell, I even have Breece Hall. Breece Hall's been sick, even though that O-line...
Not on the ground, but yes, he has been very good. Passing game, he's been amazing. It's really just you get the ball in his hands, and he's been amazing.
I mean, Josh Jacobs, he's versatile for the fact that he has to be the running back that catches the passes, and he's great at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd take I'd take all 3 of those guys. But yeah, I think Eckler's out of my top 10 at this point.
And I think, Josh Jacobs probably got to be at 7. I mean, he was the rushing champ last year. Again, efficiency isn't great, but another team, just terrible O-line, and they don't really use him right. They don't throw him the ball enough.
Well, their offense is just not good. It's another one of those not good offenses.
Yeah.
He's getting at least, well, except against Buffalo, where he had -2 rushing yards. He's getting at least 10 carries a game, 1 to 2 to 3 catches a game. Like he's getting the ball and he's producing when it's a bad defense, and he's not producing when it's a good defense. So that's an O-line problem.
So when we scrap the guys who have really only been doing it for 1 year, when we're taking out Eckler, we have 7 spots. We got McCaffrey, Chubb, Henry, Saquon, Kamara, Taylor, Jacobs. So we need 8, 9, and 10. The other names that we had on here: Travis Etienne, Breece Hall, Isaiah Pacheco, Raheem Mostert, Joe Mixon.
Joe Mixon, I'm fine leaving out just because he's never been incredible to me. The thing is, he's been so consistently, good to great even.
And also consistently inconsistent in the fact that he'll be injured one game and come back, and then he'll have 40 points, then he'll have 10 points. So just out of spite for my fantasy team, Joe Mixon, we're going to leave you off this list.
Yeah, that's fair. Out of spite, you're gone. Travis, I think I'd be most comfortable putting at 8.
The one thing I will say is 3.6 on the ground this year is not great.
No, it isn't. It isn't great. Their O-line's not even that bad. He's been getting a buttload of carries. But yeah, I just mean over the last 5 weeks, he's been so much less efficient than over the first, 10 weeks.
Hmm.
So it could just be they're figuring out the offense thing now that Trevor's banged up. But I don't know. I think he still has the breakaway speed and the home run power.
Yeah, I agree, but I'm gonna make my Raheem Mostert push right here because that
All
man
right.
is leading the
Raheem at
league in
8,
touchdowns
though?
this year. I know it's tough. It is tough. I feel there's got to be someone that we're forgetting, but I don't think there is. I was looking through all these teams, and I mean, we didn't talk about Rashad White at all, but again, guy was doing it for 1 year. Um,
Yeah. Rashad White, I think, is on that DeAndre Swift tier, but on the other side, where he's great, he just has an awful O line. If
hmm
he was on the Eagles, it'd be like, dang, look at this guy.
hmm We didn't mention Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones, I'm fine leaving out as well, just because he's been the second best running back on his team this year.
Oh, I don't know about that. I don't think AJ Dillon's been very good. When Aaron Jones has played, he's been good, but he's just
I,
injured.
yeah, I guess you're right. To me, it's just like they're using AJ Dillon so much more that it looks to me like he's better, even if their run offense can't do anything. Um, I guess maybe Aaron Jones could be in there still. I definitely put him over, guys like, I mean, Austin Eckler, in my opinion, but that's just me, who's not a big Austin Eckler guy.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, looking at his stats this year, he's actually been solid, just not healthy, um, which is not really on him. I, I'd put him around 9 or 10. I still think I'd want Travis, and you want Raheem, and I'm fine with Raheem. I'd put Raheem at 9 at this point,
So that's
Travis at 8, but if I
yeah.
flip it, that's fine.
That's our top 10 then. So we'll have Travis Etienne at 8. We're gonna put Raheem Mustard at 9 and Aaron Jones at 10. Maybe even flip those two. We'll give Aaron Jones the benefit of the doubt just because in the past when he has been healthy, he's been very good.
It's
So right
true.
now our top 10: Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, Alvin Kamara, Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs, Travis
Right.
Etienne, Aaron Jones, and Raheem Mostert. Some honorable mentions from this year: Bijan Robinson, Jameer Gibbs, James Cook, Kyron Williams. Going to be at the top next year. Same with Pacheco,
For
probably.
sure. Oh, Isaiah Pacheco too. Brees
Hmm.
Hall.
Yep, Brees Hall as well. The future is bright for running backs. I will say
It
that. There's a
is.
lot of guys
It,
on their way out here. I don't know how long Derrick Henry's going to keep going. Don't know how long
yeah,
Kamara's going to keep going.
yeah,
Same thing with Jacobs, honestly. Uh, so we'll have
yeah.
to see.
I really like the top of the list. The bottom of the list I like too. I think this is just the top 10 backs in the league. It's sad that Dalvin Cook fell off the cliff,
I know. I
but
know.
it just happens. That's the position.
It was so crazy when they released him, and then you see him play on the Jets, and you're like, oh, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Before we get out of here, let's go ahead and do a player flashback. So, Billy, I'm gonna give you the ball and the handoff here. You want to talk about a
Alrighty.
player who from history who you appreciate very much?
Okay. The player that I appreciate very much from history has got to be Priest Holmes.
Oh
Priest
my God,
Holmes,
yeah, that's a good one.
unsung hero for a running back. He's not a Hall of Famer, nor do I believe should he really be, but he definitely deserves to be in the Fantasy Hall of Fame. When you look at his career, I mean, he's 24-year-old rookie, doesn't get any touches. 25 years old, he has 1,000 yards, just over 4.3 a carry. My bad, 25 years old in 98 with Baltimore. And then, he stays with the team, is on the 2000 Ravens, doesn't really get a ton of carries, but when he does, he's efficient. And then Dick Vermeil, coach of the Chiefs, finally is like, okay, this guy, he's got some chutzpah. So he decides to give him
Chutzpah.
300 plus yards a carry for 3 straight seasons. First season, they're not great. They go 6-10. Second season, they're a little better. They go 8-8, and then third season They're awesome. Priest Holmes sets the rushing touchdowns record with 27, which was broken sadly 2 years later, and then again a year after that. But he set the record with 27, and they went 13-3, and were one of I'm not sure if they were the best team in the AFC, but I think they did get the 1 seed that year. It was between them or the Patriots, but
Mm.
I don't remember exactly. Either way, those 3 seasons, he averaged over 1,500 rushing yards a season, 18 and a half, but pretty much 19 touchdowns on the ground a season. And he caught the ball almost 70 catches for over 650 receiving yards and a little over a touchdown a season. I mean, he was awesome. He had over 2,000 all purpose yards or yards from scrimmage, my bad, for 3 straight seasons.
Yeah, I mean
And he
that's
led the league in
amazing.
touchdowns in back to back years. He was like, when it comes to peak running back talk, he is not talked about at all, but he's definitely one of the peak running backs.
I could not agree more. I think this is one of those Terrell Davis type of cases where if they didn't get injured, you could be seeing him in the Hall of Fame. I mean, obviously Terrell Davis made it to the Hall of Fame, but yeah.
But Terrell Davis was, a stud right off the bat. This guy had a
Mhm.
late breakout and then an early descent. It's just when he was in his prime, it was such a high peak.
Yeah, yeah, and the Ravens, it was really a matter of just not using him. I mean, he was drafted, or he was undrafted, and then the Ravens,
Yeah.
he played 7 games. They didn't really give him a carry, or yeah, they didn't give him a single carry actually. Um, that was in 97, 98. Yeah, they gave him the ball 230 times. He had 4.3 in the ground, had 1,000, had 7 touchdowns. Next year, didn't really give him the ball a ton. Again, started 4 games, and then final year
Mhm.
Baltimore started 2. So they didn't really give him the ball. I think that's the main thing. But yeah, then you're right. Dick Vermeil, he's like, this guy's getting 300. And how about that?
Yeah.
1,500 yards, throw on 72 catches, 600 yards. I mean, the receiving game is really underrated. He had 3 insane years with the Chiefs. After that, got injured, played 8. Injured again, played 7. Injured again, missed that whole year. And then 2007, again, injuries. So I think if you take out the injuries in the back end of his career, yeah, he could be looking at a Hall of Fame career. Who knows how many years in a row he would have had 2,000 yard scrimmage if he played.
Plus, I just love those late breakout year guys. The ones who, like, honestly, Raheem Mostert, who just break onto the scene late in their career and are awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
Raheem's not, well, actually, Raheem is as efficient as these guys. They're just not getting 300 carries a game like they used to.
right. But he's getting 20 touchdowns. Priest Holmes second year,
Yeah,
he had
touchdown
21
numbers are
touchdowns,
up.
and
You
Raheem
got to
is,
be on
is
the
getting
best
that.
offense in the league, though.
Yeah, you don't see running backs getting 20 plus touchdowns every year nowadays. So it is cool to reminisce about the past like that, where you had LaDainian Tomlinson, Priest Holmes, those type of guys just
Yeah.
pounding the rock into the end zone. On that note, I'm gonna go ahead and call it for today. I think we talked about a lot of good stuff. We got some really exciting matchups to look forward to in this week.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe some running back rankings that will shift as the year finishes. Who knows? 2 games left. Playoffs coming up soon. Should be a good home stretch for football,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm excited. So, viewers and listeners, thank you guys so much for tuning in. This episode is going to be a little bit longer than usual, but if you made it till the end, congrats. And if you do appreciate it, make sure to hit that like button on YouTube and check out the Instagram. Give it a follow at Onside Kick Show. I'll put a link to Billy's Instagram if he likes in the
Oh, yeah,
description.
sure. Why not?
You can go show Billy some love. So thank you so much for joining the show, Bill. Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Zach. This was awesome.
Of course, man. Well, thank you guys for listening, and I will see you next time. Peace out.